Where's that black? Here we go. All right, we are ready to roll, literally. Oh, I guess it's not quite 12.
Discuss the muffin options.
Yes. If you have a muffin tin, I'm prepping these right now. This is butter and this is melt. It's that plant-based substitute. And now you don't have to do this. This is for the sticky buns. But if you don't want to make sticky buns, I still suggest that we're going to roll up some dough and we're going to slice it into rounds, and you can still use muffin tins if you have muffin tins. It's a great choice for this dough with either the chocolate filling or the cinnamon filling, and I will demonstrate that. But since I am prepping here for the sticky buns, I've got the butter or the shortening, and now I'm sprinkling some brown sugar in there. Like I told you, I'm not measuring. I would say it's probably
You've got a question about
2
what
teaspoons.
should I do if the pecans got a little too dark? Should I use them anyway, or will they taste burnt and bitter?
Taste them. And if they taste burnt and bitter to you, don't use them. And if they don't, if they're just like well done, then use them. But if they're definitely tasting burnt, then everything's going to taste burnt. And
But
it'll
if
be
they're well
delicious.
done, they won't get cooked further if they're inside the dough.
Correct. They'll be fine.
When we take the dough out, do we need to knead it again?
We're going to punch it down. We're not going to knead it. We're just going to punch it down to get the air out. Who's asking the question?
That was Randy.
Randy, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm putting some pecans in. Oh, I forgot the maple syrup. Goes in
I have a
first.
question about muffins.
Yes.
This is Deborah. I just checked my trays, and I only have 2 trays, the 8.5 by 4, whatever. And I do have my muffin tray. Is there any way that I could use the extra dough and put it in the muffin?
Sure. I'm sorry, what did you say about your loaf pans?
I have only 2, but I do have a muffin tray. May I use the extra and pop it in here?
We're going to be making all these different shapes, and you can use as much dough as you want for
Great.
a loaf. Now, tell me about your loaf pans again. What size are they?
I have a picture. They're normal. They're 8.5 by
Okay.
4.5. Yeah, they're perfect.
I'm going to suggest, yeah, okay. Wait till I demonstrate some of the different shapes before you decide
Okay, thank you.
whether to use both loaf pans. You may just want to use a flat sheet pan too. All right, I've got the maple syrup, the butter or shortening, the brown sugar, and the pecans.
And you have 2 trays here because one's vegan?
One's vegan. And to distinguish them, this only has 5 in it.
The one with 5 is vegan, and
Yeah.
the one with 6 is
Yeah.
dairy and eggs.
And we're ready to go.
What is in the bottom of those little tins that's like white or creamy? What is that?
That's the butter
The butter. Okay, it's just hard to tell with the moving camera. Got it.
This is non-dairy.
or not, and this is non-dairy.
Thanks.
So it's butter, brown sugar, maple syrup, and pecans. You can do it without the pecans too, and there'll be cinnamon sticky buns. You could do it with chocolate. Now I'm going to start, just because it's closer to me, with my vegan dough, and it's very, very, very soft. and I'm taking my flour and putting it down here. And I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces to start with. I would say for your, I didn't bring my scale with me. For your 8x4 loaf pan, take a quarter of your dough. I'm going to start rolling out. I need plenty of place for rolling. Now, here's a couple of things about rolling yeasted dough.
You want to do it over here.
You can cut with a bench knife. You can cut with a knife. Okay. Now, if you're used to making pies, when you roll out a pie dough, it stays where it goes. But for a yeasted dough, you can't go back and forth like this because you're just undoing what you did. So we only roll yeasted dough in one direction. First away from us, towards us, or you can turn it around. And I'm actually going to shape this largely with my hands. And the other thing about yeasted dough is, like a lot of us, we need to relax a little bit and take breaks in between our work. So I'm going to partially roll this out. And I'm shooting for an oval shape. I am not interested really in trying to get you to do exact proportions. You can look up recipes online or in cookbooks, and they'll tell you an exact measurement. So I'm going to leave this piece for a moment. It's probably a quarter of an inch thick, and I want to get it thinner. I'm going to put it aside and start on another one. And then I'm going to show you some basic steps. And we're basically going to be working with these oval shapes. And I'm starting to use up the flour that I put down before, and it's starting to stick to the counter a little bit. I want to make sure that I go right off the end so I don't have fat edges at the top and the bottom. All right, so I've got 2 of my 4 pieces rolled out. And I'm going to come back to the one that's rested for a little bit, because now that it's relaxed, it's going to be easier for me to get to the final shape and thickness that I want. It's a very soft and supple dough. I'm going to roll out. I'm going to make it wider now. Yeah, it is a little bit like handling pizza dough. All right. You can actually do that. Make it thinner. It's not my technique, but okay. So I'm going to say I could work on this longer, make it a little thinner. Any questions so far?
Did you punch the whole piece of dough down first?
Yes, I punched it all down, and I should put the piece that I'm not working with back in my bowl and cover it. Which is half. I'm working with 2/4 of my dough right now. And the rest is going to wait. 2/4 of one of my batches. So I have 2 batches here. Again, if you can really do this by hand, it's not going to be, necessarily as thin as you want. And look, I have quite an irregular shape here. I'm not going to worry about that because I can always trim it.
We have a question from
Yes.
Tracy Kessler. I have some smaller loaf pans that are 8 by 3 7/8 by 2.4.
I highly recommend using,
How many pans would you guess that would make?
I don't, I highly recommend using smaller loaf pans. The babkas actually come out better in smaller pans. What's the dimensions again?
The dimensions that Tracy has are 8 inches by 3 7/8 of an inch by 2.5 inch. They're kind of a standard, 8 by 4.
I would say take,
It's actually probably like the size of that. That looks like that's about 8 inches by.
yeah, I'm going to use this. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I do have one like that. So I would say, yeah, you can use a quarter of your dough for that. You can use a piece, one of these pieces. As a matter of fact, that's the first thing I'm going to do is do this. And I need to grease this with some butter. Oh, I'm going to show you what to do if it's not the right size. Because you want to fill your loaf pan
Rena, you should spot like this.
about 2/3.
How much butter did you put in there?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you do actually can tell.
A couple of
There's
tablespoons.
your,
Yeah, you want to grease it really
grab
well.
that much off of it.
Now, oh shoot, I can't do that because this is vegan. All right, that will wait. So I will do. Okay, this. All right.
And the vegan milk is over there. Right here, right. Right by your hand. Put your hand down. Right there.
Okay, sorry about that. I have to wash the butter off of this.
Sorry to be redundant, but while you're washing your hands, so I had no idea my loaf pans were so big. So if I'm understanding you correctly, rather than using these 9 by 9 1/4 by 5 1/4, I should use these little tiny guys.
What'd you say? Yeah.
Probably too small for a quarter of that. So,
If she has little guys.
I have all sorts of these little guys, and then I have these loaf pans, which are
I would suggest that you can use a big loaf pan. I'll tell you what the problem is with a big loaf pan. Is that my experience has been that in the bigger loaf pans, the loaf tends to fall in the middle and sort of collapse a little bit in the middle. However, it's still going to be delicious. It will be great.
well, which one would be better? Because I have both options.
I would use the smaller ones.
And you also have a question about whether you can use a flat cookie sheet.
Yes, but I'm going to show you a special shape for the flat cookie sheet. First, I'm just going to do a straight babka, a
Well,
loaf.
I made a mistake.
Turn that so you can see it.
Okay, nice and greased up. And even so, I'm never confident that they're going to slip out. I may have to use a knife or something to get it out. Okay.
Or in this case,
Melt.
they're not.
Melt. Okay. So I'm going to take this first one. I'm going to do these don't have cocoa in them yet,
Neither
right?
have cocoa in them.
Okay. So I'm going to take I'm going to use,
Let me wash that.
no, it's okay. Yes. Actually, no, I'll just use my finger. Stir it up again. And I'm going to do a thin layer. And for now, I'm just going to use my hands, but if you have a spatula, that's perfect for this.
Although hands are pretty perfect too.
Perfect. The hands are your best tool in baking. And I'm not going all the way to the edge because I'm going to pinch these together.
You've already put the cocoa in, right?
No.
No, this
not
is cinnamon. This is cinnamon.
Oh, this is cinnamon. Okay.
This is not the chocolate batch. And then I'm going to use,
The chocolate batch does not yet, it's just butter and sugar right now, or actually vegan butter and sugar, and doesn't have cocoa in it yet.
I'm going to use raisins. Spread them, you know, they don't need to be spread thick because there's going to be layers and layers of them. Keep that in mind. That's enough. And my toasted pecan pieces. And you don't have to have raisins. You can do it without raisins. You can do it without the pecans. You can just make a cinnamon sugar babka. Now, here we go. I'm going to roll this kind of as tightly as I can. I'm pulling on it to stretch it ever so slightly so I can get more lamination in there. When I get to the end, I'm going to pinch that. If it doesn't seal completely, that's okay. Now, I'm going to take my other, shoot. Let me bring one of these. Oh, there we go. I'm going to grease this up and show you. This is going to be my scrap loaf. This is going to get all the trimmings from all the shapes we're making. And it's going to go in this loaf, and it's going to be its own delicious dessert. It's going to be mixed. There'll be some chocolate. There'll be some cinnamon. There'll be some vegans, there'll be not vegan. It's for the scraps, and it's going to be delicious. Now I can see already, here's our vegan loaf, and this is way too long. That's good. That means all this stuff I'm going to chop up into pieces. And I'm going to, you can put this in a muffin pan like this if you wanted to. Or I'm going to throw it into my monkey loaf. This is called monkey bread. It doesn't matter how much I fill that pan. Now, here is the secret to making a beautiful babka without a topping. I'm going to cut it right down the middle, leaving it attached at one end. Then I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to do some twists. Just a couple. 1, 2, 3. And now this is going in my loaf pan. I'll put the filling back in there. And there's our first babka. So that is a babka. Now, I'm going to do, let's say, I'm going to do the sticky buns. So I'm going to take my cinnamon filling.
Track of what is vegan and what isn't.
This is vegan.
Okay.
going to take this vegan filling, it's the cinnamon filling, put it here. And we're a cinnamon raisin pecan household. So we're going to go for the works. If my son were here, I would have to make some without raisins. But I've got a week before he arrives, or more than a week. Next thing I'm going to do is show you something really, really cool, just for use on a sheet pan. May as well use that up. May as well lick my fingers. Now you see this is an irregular shape. It does not matter at all. I'm going to roll this up.
Need a spot like this again.
Okay. Now let me just show you something. Let's say you had mini loaf pans. Well, what I would do at this point, if you visualize this, well, I'll just demonstrate. I could cut this in half, and instead of having one big roll, actually for these loaf pads, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because these are going to rise, don't forget. All right, I've got one roll there. And one roll here. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with this. But if I had made one roll, it would be very, very fat and very thick, because here we go, slicing it. And they would be too big for these. That's why I cut it in half. And I'm just doing maybe a little more than an inch, putting it in there. Cutting these up like this. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, these are vegan, and this is a butter tray, so I'm not going to put the vegan ones in there. But I'm going to take, I'm going to throw some of these in the monkey bread. And what am I going to do with this?
You could demo a sheet pan twist.
That's what I'm going to do. Now I have a bunt pan here. And if this were a little bit longer, I could put that in the bunt pan. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it on this sheet pan. And I think I will just make a nice round like this and put it on here. And if I can find a scissors, oh, I did find a scissors, or a sharp knife. And I'm just going to make some cuts like this. All right, and that will be beautiful and delicious. Now, if you are doing this, anything that has a, like, let's look at our babka for a second. Okay, this doesn't need to be glazed or need any topping or anything, but I will glaze this.
Can you just?
If this were an egg dough, I would glaze it with egg before I bake it, but it's vegan, so I'm not going to do that.
Can you just show us the other one to the camera? The one, no, before that.
Babka.
Yes.
Here's the babka.
Yeah, can you just show it to Nina's camera, please?
Yeah. Here's the babka.
Okay.
Here is the scrap pan with all our scraps. Here is the little round roll that I made with the leftover strand. Now, this is one of my favorite things to show you. And for this, I'm going to need a piece of parchment paper. And I'm going to take some of my dough. I'm going to take a quarter piece and my flour. Now I've got some sugar and filling on the counter here. I'm not going to worry about it. What's the worst thing that can happen? It'll go right into the dough and make it more delicious. But if you want to clean up more carefully, you certainly can. Now here's another beautiful shape to make just on a flat sheet pan. Very easy. And then the last thing I'll demonstrate is a shape that goes in a round cake pan or even a pie pan is fine. I'm going to let this rest for a second, do my last piece of vegan, and I really should be covering the things that are finished with plastic. So cover that. Stray raisin. And I'm going to make this into a rectangle shape. Well, this one, I'm not sure what I will do with. This last one. Oh, yes, I do. All right, so that will be rounder. Okay. This one I am going to trim into a rectangle.
Is it possible to keep any of this dough to bake at a later stage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you can, I would say you can certainly refrigerate it and do some more tomorrow. You can also freeze it in this state, but the one or two times I've tried that, I have found that while it works okay, it never like fully comes back to as vital as it is now. But it will. You would leave it to come to room temperature, and then go ahead and you would never.
Probably would produce a better thing to go ahead, bake the item, finish the item, bake it, and then freeze the bake.
Yes, you can also freeze these baked items very well.
Baked items freeze better than the dough does.
Yeah, I would say that's right. Now, I'm going to make a rectangle. It's supposed to be 12 by 9, but I don't have a ruler here. So I'm just going to make it longer than it is wide. And here's some scraps. Now I'm going to put this on my parchment paper. And I'm going to eyeball three columns. I'm not cutting this. This is very important. I'm just lightly scoring it. Okay? And now the filling is going to go in the middle, and I'm going to cut about 1-inch strips on each side. And the first several times I did this, I didn't think to put it on parchment paper, but this makes it much easier to, and then I'm going to cut opposite. Again, you can find this in books, and it's very precise. Make it 12 by 13 and cut this many strips, and they're this long, but it will work. So I think for this one, I'm going to do chocolate, and I need to add the cocoa powder, which I haven't done yet.
Gretchen asked a question.
Yeah.
When we put the twist in our loaf pans, is it okay if it doesn't touch the edges?
Yes, because it will rise. I'm measuring out very precisely a few tablespoons of cocoa.
The precision is appreciated.
Yes, good. I'm just going to put this right down the middle. I'm going to put my chocolate chips in there. You can make this bigger or smaller as long as the proportions are about 4 by 3. No, is that right? 12 by 9?
Yeah.
4 by 3. And as long as you do it on the parchment paper so you can. Now, we take these and fold them over. And it's very important that they overlap, because if they don't, well, that's it. We're done. This last one, I'm going to pinch a little bit. Otherwise, when it rises, it might just kind of stick up. And this is going to go on this same baking sheet. If I had thought ahead, I would have just done it right on here. There we go. Now, this is a great shape to use if you want to make like a Danish filling with cream cheese or ricotta cheese and sugar, and you can look it up online, like a cream cheese filling, and berries. So this would be like a little, I like to make this, let's say, with blueberry or raspberry cheese filling and do it this way. It's a lovely item. So there we have our vegan.
Actually, just really simply mix together, say, blueberry or raspberry jam with some ricotta cheese or cream
Yeah,
cheese.
you could
And
put that
be
in
a
there.
Really nice filling in that sort of a shape. Of course, not with your vegan.
I don't remember if that's Rookie and Jacob's pan. Okay, that is Rookie and Jacob's pan. Now, here's something really cool. I'm going to try to make this as round as I can. And this is how to make a babka if you don't have a loaf pan. And even if you do, you might want to do it this way. You roll out the edges a little bit. Maybe some of you are better at this rolling to get the shape that you want.
One of the nice things you demonstrate, Jonathan, is that it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. You just
Okay.
gotta make it delicious.
Let's call this a circle. Let's call it round. And I'm going to cut it into 2 half circles. I'm going to fill each half. It actually is better if it is more of a circle, but we've got our chocolate chips. Before I forget, I'm going to suggest you send Nina photos of yourselves, especially if any of you have little people with you, kids, and your finished products. That'll be a nice little album to have. So I'm going to roll this half circle up, stretch it out a little bit. Going to get my hands messy. I'm sorry, this is not for a sheet pan. This is for a
You could bake this in.
pie pan or a round cake pan. I'll demonstrate this. And this is what I call my yin-yang babka. So I'm going to taper it a little bit so it's fatter in the middle and thinner on the ends, kind of like a challah braid. And now I'm going to take this over my finger and twist it like this. Twist it like this. And I'm going to nest them together like a yin and yang. And I happen to have perfect size pan here. Which of course I need to grease. Using up the last of my plant-based butter, but it's also the last of the dough. So you could put this on a sheet pan, but it will hold its shape better. Now this is, again, everything is going to rise. And all these things are going to be filled. As a matter of fact, these are going to get baked here. So I should turn the oven on because they'll be ready to bake soon. These are not. This I should put in the fridge, actually. But, all right, let's see about this. Okay. All right, these are ready. Now, I have a lot more dough to do. And, right, I have twice as much dough as everyone else. Right. If you've used up your dough, you're welcome to sign off. I do have these scraps I'm just going to leave these for later, and I'll do something at the end with these scraps of vegan dough. Now I've got my dairy dough here to work with, and I'm going to do some more sticky buns.
Can you pause for a moment to get some plastic to cover everything?
Yeah, let me do that.
Yeah.
Keep that over there. And I've got how many people are still with us?
We still have about 19 participants.
Okay.
So I'm thinking a couple more things and then we can,
Okay.
I'm sure people don't want to miss anything.
So I'm going to make another babka for this. Yeah. All right. I'm going to do one more babka and some more sticky buns and take questions while I'm doing it. And then we're going to close the meeting. So I will take a quarter of this. This, one more piece of plastic. All right, rolling out the dairy dough with some flour.
We got a question.
Yes.
From Sandy Alperin. If I made all three into loaves that are braided, do I need to use egg wash? Can I use a streusel topping on it?
You can do either of those things. It sounds great. And yes, if you braided it, that's another great way to do it. You saw the way that I split that babka down the middle and twisted it, but you could split that, you could cut it into 3 strands and make a nice triple braid and put it in your loaf pan. That's another terrific way to do it. Maybe I'll do that with this one. All right, let me take another piece of dough. That one rest for a minute. Any other questions? Anybody want to show us what you've crafted there? See anything?
Deborah Glazer is showing her streusel, her
Nice, Jess. Nice job.
got a nice twist in it. Amy Chinnick is holding up a pan.
Beautiful,
Let's
Gretchen.
see. Gretchen, I think just held up her candle. We missed it. Come back, Gretchen. Looks beautiful. Jess Lambright's got a pan held up.
Can I see?
Nice.
I see.
Nice.
Turn it to me.
Okay, there.
I don't get to see these. Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Nice work. Nice work.
All right, getting ready to fill this one. This will be a chocolate babka. Oh dear.
Do you want to show how to do the coil with the twists on the sheet pan? Where you make a coil and then snip and twist them out?
Maybe.
Maybe. It's pretty.
You mean a straight line? Or,
I was thinking,
okay, you can do one.
no, I don't do it. You do whatever you want.
Where's the other
What are you looking for?
glass bowl? Oh, there, that gets cocoa in it. Okay. All right, this is a little thick, but I'm going to,
Do you want to do that with the cocoa right now? Leave that for after. You're not going to finish everything.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to make cocoa with this. This will be a chocolate babka. And it's a little stiff.
Question,
I'm
should
not.
you be letting rise for 20 minutes before oven
Yes,
and cover with plastic?
yes. These do not need to rise for very long. 20 minutes, and then turning your oven on will be plenty. Or even just bake them after 20 minutes.
That her grandma, Babka from the bakery in Brooklyn, and this is full circle. She's a grandma now making babka.
Ah, isn't that great? I really should have warmed this up a little bit.
There's a microwave right behind you.
I can't use a microwave.
What's the problem if it gets too thick? Because mine's pretty thick, but why?
It's just harder to spread evenly.
It will taste just as good.
Yeah.
It will come out fine.
And this is kind of oddly shaped. I also didn't add as much cocoa powder to this. I can see it's just not as dark.
Guess you just
And
have to put some more chocolate chips in.
can you grab some?
Sorry.
Good. Perfect. All right. Get this rolled up. This is obviously going to be fatter in the middle, but that's fine for a tapered shape. And I think I'm just going to,
Snips and twisting the coils out.
I don't,
Don't remember.
I don't,
Okay.
but you can demonstrate it.
Okay.
Should I do it with this? Okay, so I've got my little pan here. I will trim the edges. And I think I'll just do my twist again. That's the perfect size for that pan. Put that aside. This is going home.
Are you keeping track of where you're putting the vegan versus the?
Yes,
This
yes.
is your first regular, non-vegan.
Right. And this is vegan, but that's baked at home. I just have to remember. And these will go into our monkey bread pan. And there's some filling, extra filling. And all right, next is, these are more sticky buns here. I'm going to do those. But if everyone is well on their way, we will sign off. I'm going to finish these up. I will say one more thing. A very lovely thing to make would be, let's say, to just take this piece and just put the cinnamon sugar filling on it and roll it up and slice it and just lay those right down on a sheet pan, a cookie sheet, and cook them. And then you have little cinnamon twists, cinnamon spirals, schnecken. My grandmother used to call these schnecken. My grandmother made these as well, which is Yiddish or German for snails. And so these are kosher snails.
Would
Thank
you
you,
bake,
everybody.
would
What,
you
Nina?
bake, it's Shirley,
Shirley,
would you bake the little pans, the sticky buns separately?
I wouldn't bake them separately, but I would keep an eye on them because they're only going to take maybe a half to 3/4 of the time of the babka. Does that make sense?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Anything that's small, the schnecken, the sticky buns are going to take less time. If you make these little rolls and put them on a sheet pan, they're going to take less time. And
I have a question.
yeah.
This is Deborah Gelser.
Deborah.
What is the temperature and for how long?
I would say 350, depending on your oven. If
Okay.
you have a convection oven, it's 325. And let's see, the recipe here says for the loaves, the babka loaves, about 35 to 40 minutes. And so the smaller things would be maybe 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes.
How do you have a good sense of, like, I know when I bake other things, I kind of know when they're done because it's golden brown or because I put a toothpick in it or, you know, all sorts of different methods. But for this, I'm thinking like it's covered with so much chocolate. How will I really know when it's done?
Yeah, that is a really good question, and it's a tough question. They're kind of easy to overbake and not so easy to underbake. But if they're overbaked, they'll just be a little browner and a little chewier. So one thing you could do is, let's say you're baking, sorry, this is who?
Gretchen.
Gretchen. So what are you baking?
Babka is in the big loaf pans.
Babka in a big loaf pan. So one thing you could do, Gretchen, is if you can, sort of check the sides. And if the sides are light brown, it's probably done.
Okay.
Whereas if they're still like white and they don't look baked, they're not done.
Okay.
And then if they start to get much browner, like as brown as the top, they're definitely done and you can take them out.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yep.
This is Amy Chinitz. So first, Jessica, my daughter, is working on the version where she's going to cut the side pieces and fold them over. And did you end up putting that in a pie tin?
The yin yang one?
No, it's here I can show you. It's this one where you cut you cut it into 3 sections and then you folded it over the overlapping strips.
You mean braiding?
No.
Flat sheet. Put it on a flat sheet.
On a flat sheet, okay. And are we glazing them with egg if we're not doing vegan?
Yes. Anything, if you have a surface of dough, it'll look nice if you glaze it with egg. This I'm not going to bother. This one I won't do because it's got a a textured surface already, and there's not that much dough to glaze there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're just taking like a egg and just brushing it over?
Do you have the recipe?
Yes.
So it says, I think add a tablespoon of milk or water mixed with 1 egg.
Okay.
You have to dilute it a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This is
Sure. My pleasure. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Send pictures.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see your face.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.